The warning lights flashed red across the control panel. Captain Do-hyun Kim stared at them with growing dread. His small freighter, the Times Rising Dawn *, shuddered as another system failed. The main engine was dying, and he was still 2 days away from the nearest station. "Come on, hold together," Do-hyun whispered to his ship. He was only 28 years old, and this was his first command. The freighter wasn't much to look at, but it was his, bought with every credit he'd saved over 5 years of working on other people's ships. Behind him, in the cargo hold, sat 300 containers of medical supplies. Each one was precious. Each one could save lives. The Korvax colony on Helios Prime was dying from a plague, and these supplies were their only hope. Do-hyun had taken the contract because no one else would. The pay was terrible, and the route was dangerous. But people were dying, and he couldn't say no. The engine made a grinding sound that no engine should ever make. Then, it went silent. The ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel, and Do-hyun found himself drifting in empty space. He checked his location. By pure luck, he was only 6 hours from Merchant's Haven, a small trading station on the outer rim. It was something. At least, he fired his maneuvering thrusters and began the slow journey toward the station. 6 hours later, the Times Rising Dawn Times limped into the station's docking bay. Do-hyun sealed his ship and stepped out onto the dock. The station was busy with traders from dozens of different species. He saw tall, thin aliens with blue skin, short, furry creatures with 6 legs, a group of insect-like beings with shimmering wings. This, far from Earth, humans were rare. Do-hyun made his way to the station master's office. The station master was a creature called Gorvan, with 4 arms and gray, leathery skin. He looked up as Do-hyun entered. "My engine is dead," Do-hyun said simply. "I need repairs." Gorvan pulled up the Times Rising Dawn's Times information on his screen. Human freighter, Class C cargo hauler, old model. He looked at Do-hyun. "The repairs will cost 8,000 credits. Do-hyun's heart sank. He had 3,000 credits to his name. "I only have 3,000. But I'm carrying medical supplies for the Korvax plague victims. If I don't deliver them in 5 days, they'll expire. People will die." Gorvan's expression didn't change. "I'm sorry. Station policy. Payment up front for repairs." Do-hyun left the office feeling defeated. He sat on a bench near the docking bay and put his head in his hands. He'd failed before he even really started. Those people on Helios Prime would die, and it would be his fault for taking a contract he couldn't complete. "You look troubled, human." Do-hyun looked up. A reptilian creature stood before him, scales shimmering green and gold in the station lights. He wore the clothes of a merchant. "My ship's engine died," Do-hyun said. "I can't afford the repairs, and I'm carrying medical supplies that people desperately need." The reptilian tilted his head. "I am Velis, a trader. I heard you speaking with Gorvan." "The Korvax plague, you said?" "Yes. 300 containers of medical supplies. They're worth 50,000 credits. But I can't sell them. They're already paid for by the Korvax government. I just need to deliver them." Velis was quiet for a moment. "Let me see your ship." "Oh." Do-hyun led Velis to the Times Rising Dawn *. The merchant examined the cargo hold, checking the seals on the containers. Then he looked at the dead engine. "This engine needs a new power core and a rebuilt plasma manifold," Velis said. "I have both items in my warehouse. They're used, but they'll work. I told you, I only have 3,000 credits." "I know," Velis said. "I'll sell them to you for 3,000 credits. That's less than half their value. But it's what you have." Do-hyun stared at him. "Why would you do that?" Velis's eyes, large and yellow, looked at Do-hyun with something like respect. "Because you're trying to save lives, and you're doing it even though it's costing you everything. That's worth something." Before Do-hyun could respond, an insect-like creature approached. She had 6 legs and delicate, translucent wings. She said in a clicking, musical voice, "I'm Nissa, an engineer. If you have the parts, I can install them. I won't charge you." "Why?" Do-hyun asked again. "Because I want to," Nissa said simply. "Not everything needs a reason." Over the next 2 days, something remarkable happened. Word spread through the station about the human captain trying to deliver medicine to dying people. One by one, aliens came to help. A fuel merchant gave Do-hyun enough fuel to reach Helios Prime at cost. A food supplier restocked his supplies for free. A tech specialist fixed his navigation system without charging. Even Gorvan, the station master, reduced the docking fees to almost nothing. Nissa worked through both nights, sleeping only a few hours. She rebuilt the engine with care, making sure every connection was perfect. Velis brought not just the parts Do-hyun needed, but extra supplies in case something else broke down. On the 3rd day, the Times Rising Dawn Times was ready to fly. Do-hyun stood in the docking bay, surrounded by the aliens who had helped him. He didn't know what to say. His voice caught in his throat. "I don't know how to thank you," he finally managed. "All of you gave me something I couldn't buy. You saved my mission. You saved those people on Helios Prime. Just deliver the medicine," Velis said. "That's thanks enough." Do-hyun shook his head. "No, it's not enough. I'm making you all a promise right now. If any of you ever need help, you send word to me. I don't know how I'll do it, but I'll find a way. I'll repay this debt." Nissa's wings fluttered. "Humans and their promises," she said, but her tone was kind. "I'm serious," Do-hyun said. "I won't forget this. I won't forget any of you." Velis reached out and clasped Do-hyun's shoulder with a clawed hand. "Then fly safe, young captain. Deliver your medicine. Save those lives." Do-hyun boarded his ship. The engine hummed to life, strong and steady. He guided the Times, Rising Dawn Times, out of the docking bay and set course for Helios Prime. He arrived with a day to spare. The medical supplies were unloaded and distributed immediately. The plague was stopped. Millions of Korvax lives were saved. Back on Merchant's Haven, Velis and Nissa stood at the window, watching the stars. "Do you think he meant it?" Nissa asked. "About repaying the debt?" Velis was quiet for a moment. "He's human. They're sentimental creatures. I'm sure he meant it in the moment. But life moves on. He'll forget eventually." "Too, maybe," Nissa said. "Or maybe not." They returned to their own lives, their own businesses. The young human captain became a memory, a pleasant story to tell over drinks. They didn't know that Do-hyun Kim kept a list of every person who helped him that day. They didn't know he kept their names and contact information in a secure file. They didn't know he thought about them every single day. And they couldn't know that 15 years later, that promise would change the galaxy forever. 15 years changed everything. The Galactic Council chamber was filled with representatives from 100 different species. They gathered to discuss trade routes, territorial disputes, and the usual political matters. But today, one topic dominated every conversation before the official meeting even began. "Have you seen the latest reports?" A tall, crystalline being asked his neighbor. "The Terrans have established 12 new colonies in the past year alone." 12? Another replied, feathers ruffling in surprise. "They only had 30 colonies 5 years ago. They have over 100 now. And their fleet," the crystalline being paused. "Their fleet is larger than anyone expected." In a private room above the main chamber, Ambassador Sun-hee Kang stood at the window, watching the delegates gather below. She was 45 years old, with gray streaking her black hair. She'd spent the last decade representing Earth's interests in the galactic community. "They're talking about us again," said her aide, a young man named Taejin. "They're always talking about us," Sun-hee replied. 15 years ago, humanity was barely noticed. We had a few ships, a handful of colonies, and no real influence. Now they can't stop watching us. Does it bother you? The way they look at us? Sun-hee smiled. Some look at us with respect, others with fear, a few with jealousy. But they all look. That's what matters. End. 1. Far from the political center of the galaxy, the Terran Defense Fleet conducted exercises near the Outer Rim. 40 warships moved in perfect formation, their coordination flawless. At the center of the fleet was the flagship, the Time's Eternal Promise *, commanded by Admiral Do-hyun Kim. Do-hyun stood on the bridge, watching his fleet maneuver. He was 43 now, his face lined with experience, but his eyes still sharp. The young freighter captain who'd struggled to keep one small ship running now commanded the entire Terran Defense Fleet. Admiral, the exercise is complete, reported his second-in-command, Captain Ji-hyun Park. She was 35, tough and competent, having risen through the ranks by being the best at everything she did. All ships performed within acceptable parameters. Better than acceptable, Do-hyun said. Captain Minho Choi's stealth frigate squadron shaved another 30 seconds off their deployment time. Ji-hyun smiled. Minho always pushes his people hard. The other captains are trying to keep up with him. Good. That's the kind of competition I want. Do-hyun pulled up a display showing the entire fleet. 40 ships, ranging from massive battle cruisers to quick-strike frigates. Each one was commanded by someone he trusted absolutely. Across the fleet, the captains were legends in their own right. Captain Yuna Lee commanded the carrier group, her tactical genius known throughout the fleet. Captain Minho Choi led the stealth operations, appearing and disappearing like a ghost. Captain Dong-hyun Song patrolled the border regions, keeping pirates and raiders at bay. There were dozens more, each one skilled, each one dedicated. Prepare the fleet for transit to the Deneb sector, Do-hyun ordered. Yes, Admiral. Ji-hyun paused. Sir, may I ask you something? Of course. Why do you push us so hard? Not that I'm complaining. But some of the other species' fleets don't train nearly as much as we do. Yet you're always demanding more from us. Do-hyun was quiet for a moment. Because one day, someone is going to need our help. And when that day comes, I want to make sure we're ready. I want to make sure we're good enough. Ji-hyun nodded, accepting the answer even if she didn't fully understand it. In the lower levels of the Time's Eternal Promise *, crew members gathered in the mess hall during their off-shift. They came from every part of Earth, from every background. Chinese, Korean, Nigerian, Brazilian, European, Indian, humanity, in all its variety. But here, on these ships, they were just Terrans. Did you hear? My cousin just got accepted to the academy, a young woman said excitedly. That's incredible. The academy only takes the best. She's smart, and she wants to serve. She says she wants to be like the Admiral. Everyone in the fleet felt that way about Admiral Kim. He never asked them to do anything he wouldn't do himself. He knew the name of every captain, and he made an effort to know as many crew members as possible. More than that, he treated everyone with respect, regardless of their rank. There were stories about him, passed from ship to ship. How he'd started as a freighter captain, with nothing. How he'd built his reputation by always keeping his word. How he'd joined the Terran Defense Fleet when it was just forming and risen through the ranks, not through politics, but through pure competence and integrity. Back on the bridge, Do-hyun received a communication from Earth Command. He read the message and frowned slightly. Problem, sir? Ji-hyun asked. The council wants to meet with me. They're concerned about our fleet size. Concerned? We're defending our own territory and trade routes. Some species think we're building up for war, Do-hyun said. They don't understand that we're just being prepared. Will you go to the council? Yes, Ambassador Sun-hee can use the support. He smiled. Besides, it's been a while since I've been to the Galactic Center. It'll be interesting to see how they react. 3 days later, Admiral Do-hyun Kim walked through the council chambers. His uniform was simple but crisp, displaying his rank and the emblem of Terra. Every species representative turned to watch him pass, some with curiosity, some with worry, a few with open hostility. He met with Ambassador Sun-hee in her office. She hugged him warmly. Do-hyun, it's good to see you. And you, Sun-hee, you look tired. Politics is exhausting, she admitted. But we're making progress. Slowly. They talked about Earth's position in the galaxy. About trade agreements and territorial boundaries. About the delicate balance of power that kept the peace. They're afraid of us, Sun-hee said. Not all of them, but enough. They see how fast we've grown, how strong our fleet is. They wonder what we want. We want what everyone wants, Do-hyun said. Security, prosperity, peace. I know that. You know that. But convincing 100 different species? She shook her head. Some of them remember when humans were weak. They preferred us that way. Do-hyun looked out at the council chamber. Let them be afraid. If that's what they choose. We didn't build this fleet to conquer anyone. We built it to protect our people and our friends. Friends, Sun-hee repeated. You always talk about honor and loyalty. It's very Korean of you, he smiled. Maybe. Or maybe it's just the right way to live. That evening, Do-hyun attended a diplomatic reception. He moved through the crowd, polite but distant. He had no interest in political games. He was a military man, most comfortable on his ship. A Korvax ambassador approached him. The reptilian bowed slightly. Admiral Kim, I wanted to thank you personally. The patrol routes your fleet established have greatly reduced piracy in our sector. Just doing our job, Do-hyun replied. Still, we appreciate it. The Korvax people remember that humans have always been friends to us. After the ambassador moved away, Do-hyun thought about those words. Friends. The Korvax had been the ones he'd saved all those years ago, delivering medicine when their colony was dying. He wondered if any of them knew that the admiral who now commanded Earth's fleet was the same young captain who'd nearly failed that mission. He still kept the list. The names of everyone who'd helped him at Merchant's Haven 15 years ago. Velis, Nissa, Gorvan, and a dozen others. He checked on them, occasionally, quietly. Velis had become a successful merchant lord. Nissa led a major engineering consortium. Gorvan had retired. They'd all done well, and not one of them had ever called in that debt. Not one had ever asked for his help. But Do-hyun remembered. Every single day, he remembered. And if any of them ever needed him, he would be there. The galaxy had changed in 15 years. Humanity had risen from obscurity to prominence. The Terran defense fleet was now a force that demanded respect, and Admiral Do-hyun Kim had gone from a struggling freighter captain to one of the most powerful military commanders in known space. But some things hadn't changed. Do-hyun still believed in keeping promises. He still believed in repaying debts. And he'd built an entire fleet of people who believed the same thing. The galaxy just didn't know it yet. Velis stared at the tactical display and tried not to show fear. Behind his ship, 37 civilian transports struggled to maintain formation. Inside those ships were over 15,000 Korvax refugees. Families, children, the elderly, all of them fleeing for their lives. Ahead, on the sensors, 63 warships of the Ravager Horde were closing in fast. How long until they're in weapons range? Velis asked his pilot. 30 minutes? Maybe less? Velis was old now. 70 years had passed since the day he'd helped a young human captain at Merchant's Haven. His scales had dulled to a pale green, and his movements were slower, but his mind was still sharp. And right now, it was working desperately to find a way out of this trap. Can we go faster? He asked. No, sir. The transports are already at maximum speed. Several are overloading their engines, just to keep up. The Ravager Horde had appeared 3 days ago in the border territories. They weren't a government or an organized military. They were pirates, raiders, and criminals banded together under a warlord named Crexus. They killed for profit, for supplies, and sometimes just for pleasure. 6 Korvax colonies had already fallen. The Ravagers took what they wanted and destroyed the rest. Millions were dead. The few survivors had fled in whatever ships they could find. Velis had been in the sector on business when the attacks started. Instead of running to safety, he'd gathered as many civilian ships as he could and led them away from the war zone. Led them away. Velis is running. Now he was regretting that decision. His merchant vessel was unarmed. The transports had no weapons at all. They were helpless. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Ravagers," his communications officer said. "Ignore it. I know what they want." But the officer put it through anyway. The face of Warlord Crexus appeared on the screen. He was a Thurok, a species known for their size and strength. His face was covered in scars, and his eyes held nothing but cruelty. "Korvax merchant," Crexus said, his voice like grinding stone. "Surrender your ships. We'll make your deaths quick." "We're civilians," Velis said, keeping his voice steady. "We have nothing you want. You have ships. You have bodies we can sell as slaves. You have supplies." Crexus smiled, showing sharp teeth. "And I want target practice for my gunners. So really, you have everything I want." The transmission ended. Velis closed his eyes for a moment. 30 minutes. That's all the time they had left. His communications officer spoke quietly. "Sir, should I send a distress call? To who?" "The nearest military force is 2 days away. The Council fleet is scattered. No one can reach us in time." But even as he said it, a memory surfaced. A young human with earnest eyes, standing in a docking bay. "If any of you ever need help, send word to me. I'll find a way. I'll repay this debt." Velis had dismissed it at the time. A nice gesture from a sentimental species. But now, with death minutes away, he found himself thinking about that promise. "Pull up the old Earth communication codes," Velis said suddenly. "The ones from 15 years ago." "Sir, just do it." The officer complied, looking confused. Velis composed a simple message. He used outdated Terran protocols, the kind that would flag as priority in Earth's military networks. He kept it short and direct. "This is Velis of the Korvax. I once helped a human named Do-hyun Kim. I'm calling in that debt. My position is attached. I have 15,000 civilians, 30 minutes until we're destroyed. If anyone receives this, please help." He sent it broadcasting on all frequencies. Then, he sat back and waited, knowing it was pointless. Even if the message reached the right person, even if that young captain somehow got it, there was no way anyone could arrive in 30 minutes. "It's okay," he told his crew. "We tried. At least we got the civilians this far." 3 star systems away, Captain Dong-Yun Song was running a routine patrol near the border when his communications officer suddenly stood up. "Sir, priority distress call coming through on old military channels." Dong-Yun frowned. "Old channels? Who still uses those?" "Unknown, sir. The message is unusual. It's asking for someone named Do-Hyun Kim." Dong-Hyun felt his spine stiffen. Everyone in the Terran Defense Fleet knew that name. "Forward it to me. Now." He listened to Velis's message. Then, he listened again. His hands were shaking slightly. "Get me Admiral Kim. Emergency priority. Do it now." "Sir, the Admiral is in a command meeting with... I don't care if he's meeting with God himself. Get him on the line right now." 2 minutes later, Admiral Do-Hyun Kim's face appeared on the screen. "Captain Song. This better be... Sir, you need to hear this." Dong-Hyun forwarded the message. He watched the Admiral's face as he listened. Saw the recognition. Saw the memory. Saw something else, too. A fierce determination that Dong-Hyun had never seen before. "Where is he?" Do-hyun asked quietly. Sector 447. Under attack by the Ravager Horde. He has civilians with him. Sir. Even at maximum speed. We're 3 hours away. I know. Do-hyun was already pulling up fleet positions on his command screen. His fingers moved rapidly, calculating distances and travel times. Then he did something Dong-hyun had never seen him do. He sent a fleet-wide broadcast. Priority Alpha. Every Terran ship in 7 sectors would receive it immediately. All Terran vessels, this is Admiral Kim. We have a debt to honor. 15 years ago, before most of you joined this fleet, aliens helped a human in need. They asked for nothing in return. Today, one of them has called for help. His name is Velis. He's protecting 15,000 civilians from the Ravager Horde in Sector 447. He has less than 30 minutes. Do-hyun paused, and his voice became steel. I made a promise 15 years ago. I promised that if they ever needed help, I would answer. I'm keeping that promise. All ships capable of reaching Sector 447 converge immediately. This is not a request. This is not a debate. This is who we are. The broadcast ended. Dong-hyun sat stunned. Then his tactical display lit up like a fireworks show. Ships were responding. Not just a few. Not just the ones nearby. Every Terran vessel within range was acknowledging and changing course. Captain Ji-hyun Park's battlecruiser, the Times Indomitable Asterisk, had been 4 systems away. She responded within seconds. This is Park. ETA 40 minutes. Coming in hot. Captain Minho Choi's stealth frigate squadron was closer. Choi here. We're already burning maximum. ETA 35 minutes. We'll hold them until everyone arrives. Captain Yuna Lee's carrier group was further away but still responded. Lee acknowledging. My fighters are launching now. We'll be there in 50 minutes. More captains responded. More ships changed course. Within 5 minutes, 43 Terran warships were converging on Sector 447. They were abandoning patrols, leaving stations, pulling out of scheduled drills. Nothing mattered, except reaching Velis. In time. In other parts of the galaxy, alien species monitoring Terran military communications watched in confusion. Why were the humans mobilizing their entire available fleet? Was this some kind of war? Some massive threat? On Merchant's Haven Station, Engineer Nissa sat in her office when an assistant ran in. Ma'am, the Terrans are moving their fleet. Something big is happening. Nissa pulled up the communication networks. She saw the fleet movements, saw the destination, and then she saw the name, Velis. Oh, she said softly, her wings trembling slightly. Oh, he actually meant it. Back in Sector 447, Velis watched the timer count down. 20 minutes until the Ravagers reached weapons range. His crew was silent. The civilian transports behind him had stopped broadcasting, accepting their fate quietly. Then his communications officer gasped. Sir, transmission incoming. Terran military codes. What? It's Admiral Do-hyun Kim, sir. Velis felt like his heart had stopped. The screen activated, and there he was. Older, wearing an admiral's uniform, but still the same human who'd stood in that docking bay 15 years ago. Velis, Do-hyun said, his voice calm and steady. This is Admiral Kim of the Terran Defense Fleet. I received your message. Help is coming. Hold your position. Protect your civilians. We'll be there. Admiral, you can't possibly hold your position. Do-hyun's voice was iron. That's an order from a friend. Can you give me 35 minutes? Velis looked at his tactical display. The Ravagers would reach them in 20. But something in Do-hyun's voice made him believe. Made him hope. We'll hold, Velis promised. Good. See you soon, old friend. The transmission ended. Velis turned to his crew. You heard the Admiral. We hold for 35 minutes. Evasive maneuvers. Keep the transports behind us. Make those Ravagers work for every shot. His crew, energized by sudden hope, responded with determination. The merchant vessel began to weave and dodge, buying precious seconds. And across 3 star systems, 43 Terran warships pushed their engines past safety limits, racing to keep a promise made 15 years ago. Captain Ji-hyun Park stood on the bridge of the Time's indomitable asterisk, watching the countdown timer. 32 minutes, until they reached Velas's position. Behind her battlecruiser, 7 more heavy warships maintained formation, pushing their engines to the limit. Engineering, status report, she ordered. Engines at 115% capacity, Captain. We can maintain this for another hour before we risk permanent damage. Maintain speed. If the engines burn out, we'll replace them. We need to get there. Her second in command, a man named Hyun-sik, stepped closer. Captain, we're receiving updates from other ships. Captain Minho Choi's squadron will arrive first. They're only 30 minutes out. Good. Minho's people are fast. Ji-hyun pulled up the tactical situation. 8 stealth frigates against 63 enemy warships. The math was terrible. Tell him to hold position once he arrives. Don't engage until we get there. Tell. He's going to engage anyway, isn't he? Ji-hyun smiled grimly. Probably. But we had to try. Across the fleet, every Terran ship was having similar conversations. Captains checked their weapon systems. Crews ran battle drills. Marines prepared for possible boarding actions. Everyone understood what they were doing. Rushing to honor a debt that most of them had never heard about until 30 minutes ago. But they didn't question it. Admiral Kim had given the order. And that was enough. If the admiral said they had a debt to honor, then they had a debt to honor. On the Time's eternal promise asterisk, Admiral Do-hyun Kim stood at the center of his command bridge, watching the holographic display. 43 blue dots representing Terran ships converged on a single point. 63 red dots represented the Ravager horde. And 1 green dot, Velas's merchant vessel, tried desperately to stay alive. Admiral, we're receiving requests from other galactic powers, his communications officer reported. They want to know why we're mobilizing the fleet. Tell them we're responding to a distress call. They're asking if we're declaring war on the Ravagers. We're responding to a distress call. Do-hyun repeated. That's all they need to know. Those Naunda. Captain Ji-hyun Park's voice came through on a private channel. Admiral, permission to speak freely? Always, Ji-hyun. Is it worth it? I'm not questioning your orders. But 43 ships? For 1 merchant vessel? The Council will have questions. Other species will wonder why we're committing so much force. Do-hyun was quiet for a moment. Do you know why I push this fleet so hard, Ji-hyun? Why I demand excellence from every captain? Every crew member? Ji-hyun. 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 You said it's because someone might need our help. That's part of it. But there's more. Do-hyun looked at the green dot representing Velas. 15 years ago, I was nobody. A young captain with a dying ship, and no money. Velas and his people helped me. They didn't have to. They gained nothing from it. They just did it because it was right. And now you're repaying them. No, I'm showing the galaxy who we are. Do-hyun's voice became firm. Other species see power as conquest. They see strength as domination. I want them to see something different when they look at humanity. I want them to see that we remember kindness. That we protect our friends. That if you help even one human, you've earned the loyalty of all of us. Ji-hyun was silent. Then, that's a hell of a message, Admiral. It's the only message worth sending. Now, let's go save our friend. Captain Minho Choi crouched in his command chair as his stealth frigate, the Time's Shadowrunner *, dropped out of faster-than-light travel. 7 more frigates appeared around him, their stealth systems immediately engaging. Status, he barked. We're in position, 2 minutes ahead of the Ravagers. Velas's convoy is holding formation, but his ship is damaged. Minho studied the tactical display, 63 enemy ships, 8 of his frigates. The Ravagers were bigger, better armed, and had more firepower. But Minho's squadron had one advantage: they were invisible. All ships, maintain stealth. Position yourselves around the convoy. When the Ravagers open fire, we hit their targeting systems. Don't try to destroy them. Just blind them. We buy time until the heavy ships arrive. His pilots acknowledged. 8 frigates moved like ghosts, taking up defensive positions around Velus's convoy. The Ravagers came closer, their weapons powering up. On Velus's merchant ship, the crew watched their scanners in confusion. "Sir, I'm reading something. Multiple somethings. But I can't get a clear reading." "What kind of something?" Velus asked. "Unknown." "Wait." The officer's eyes widened. "Terran stealth signatures. They're already here." Before Velus could respond, the Ravager horde opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked toward the civilian transports. And then, as if appearing from nowhere, 8 Terran frigates decloaked just long enough to launch a devastating counterstrike. Missiles and railgun rounds tore into the lead Ravager ships. Not to destroy them, but to hit their sensors, their targeting computers, their communication arrays. The Ravager formation dissolved into chaos as ships suddenly found themselves blind and unable to coordinate. Then the frigates vanished again, stealth systems re-engaging. Warlord Crexus roared in fury on his flagship. "What was that?" "Unknown, sir. We're tracking 8 contacts, but they keep disappearing." "Find them. Destroy them." The Ravagers fired wildly, hitting empty space. Minho's frigates danced around them, appearing just long enough to fire before vanishing again. It was like fighting shadows. "Captain, how long can we keep this up?" Minho's weapons officer asked. "As long as we need to." Minho checked the timer. "Ji-Hyun's battle group arrives in 7 minutes. We just need to keep these bastards busy until then." But the Ravagers were adapting. Crexus ordered his ships to spread out, creating a wider net. Some began firing blind, saturating areas with weapons fire. One of Minho's frigates took a glancing hit, its stealth system flickering. "All ships, stay mobile. Don't let them pin you down." Back on the Time's indomitable asterisk, Ji-Hyun watched the countdown. 5 minutes. 4. 3. "All ships, prepare for combat drop. Weapons free on my command." The timer hit 0. 8 massive battlecruisers dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. They appeared directly between the Ravagers and the convoy, their massive hulls blocking any clear shot at the civilians. "This is Captain Ji-Hyun Park of the Terran Defense Fleet." She broadcast on all channels. "The civilians under Velus's protection are now under Terran protection. Any ship that fires on them will be destroyed." Crexus stared at the new arrivals. 8 battlecruisers, 8 frigates, 16 ships total. He still had 63. The math was in his favor. "Terrans," he growled. "You're far from home. These aren't your people. Leave now, and we'll forget this happened." Ji-Hyun's response was cold. "We don't abandon our friends. Last chance to withdraw." Crexus laughed. "You're outnumbered 4-1. You can't win this, can't we?" Ji-Hyun smiled. "Check your sensors again." Crexus looked at his tactical display. Then his eyes widened. More ships were arriving. First 1. Then 5. Then 10. Terran warships kept dropping out of faster-than-light travel, forming up around the convoy. Captain Yuna Lee's carrier group arrived, launching hundreds of fighters. Captain Dong-Yun Song's patrol squadron appeared on the Ravager's flank. More captains, more ships, all converging on this one point in space. Within minutes, 43 Terran warships surrounded the convoy. Battle cruisers, carriers, frigates, destroyers. The entire available Terran defense fleet, united in a single purpose. And then the Time's eternal promise times arrived. Admiral Do-hyun Kim's flagship emerged from faster-than-light travel, positioning itself directly in front of Velas's merchant vessel. Do-hyun's voice echoed across every frequency. "This is Admiral Do-hyun Kim of the Terran Defense Fleet. 15 years ago, the beings in this convoy helped a human in need. They asked nothing in return. Today, they called for help, and every Terran captain answered." On his merchant ship, Velas stared at the display screen with tears in his eyes. 43 warships, hundreds of fighters, thousands of humans, all here because of a promise made 15 years ago. "I can't believe it," he whispered. "I can't believe they came." His communications officer looked at him with wonder. On the bridge of the Times Eternal Promise *, Do-hyun watched the Ravager fleet. They'd stopped advancing, clearly shocked by the Terran response. Crexus was probably trying to figure out if this was some kind of trap. "Open a channel to Velas," Do-hyun ordered. A moment later, Velas's face appeared on the screen. The old Korvax was crying openly. "Do-hyun, you really came. I made a promise, old friend. I always keep my promises. There are so many ships. Did you bring your entire fleet?" Quote, "Did you bring your entire fleet?" Every captain who could reach you in time volunteered. Not one had to be ordered. They came because it was right. Do-hyun smiled. "You saved my life 15 years ago. Today, we save yours." Velas couldn't speak. He just nodded, overcome with emotion. Do-hyun turned back to his tactical display. The Ravagers were still there, still threatening. But now, the balance of power had shifted completely. All ships maintain defensive positions, weapons locked on all Ravager vessels. Do not fire unless fired upon. He opened a channel to Crexus. "Warlord, you have two choices. Withdraw now, or we end this. Choose quickly." The galaxy watched, holding its breath, waiting to see what humanity would do next. Warlord Crexus stared at the tactical display, his massive hands gripping the armrests of his command chair. 43 Terran warships surrounded his fleet. Every weapons system was locked onto his ships. One command from the human admiral, and this would become a bloodbath. But Crexus hadn't survived this long by being stupid. He did the math quickly. He had more ships, but the Terrans had better positioning, better coordination, and they'd already demonstrated superior technology with those stealth frigates. More importantly, they had purpose. His crew were raiders and pirates. They fought for profit, not for causes. The humans looked like they'd fight to the last ship. Still, retreat meant humiliation. It meant losing face in front of the entire galaxy. Crexus was a warlord. He couldn't show weakness. "They're bluffing," he told his crew. "The humans won't risk a full battle over some refugees. They're trying to scare us off." His second-in-command, a scarred veteran named Throck, looked uncertain. "Sir, they brought their entire fleet. That doesn't look like a bluff. They brought their fleet to make a show, to look strong, but they won't actually fight." Crexus opened a channel to Admiral Kim. "Human Admiral, you talk big, but we both know you don't want this fight. You've got politicians back home who'll ask questions. You've got casualties to explain. All this for some aliens who aren't even your species?" On the Times Eternal Promise *, Do-hyun listened to Crexus's words with a calm expression. His bridge crew watched him, waiting for orders. He could feel the tension in the air. "All ships," Do-hyun broadcast on the Terran Fleet channel. "I'm going to make something very clear to the galaxy. Stand by." He switched to an open broadcast, ensuring every ship in the sector could hear, ensuring that news networks across the galaxy would pick it up. This wasn't just a message to Crexus. This was a message to everyone. "My name is Admiral Do-hyun Kim. 15 years ago, I was a nobody. A young captain with a broken ship and no hope. I was trying to deliver medicine to dying people, but I couldn't afford repairs. I thought I'd failed." He paused, looking at Velas's ship on his display. Then, at Merchant's Haven Station, aliens I'd never met came to help me. A Korvax merchant named Velis gave me parts at a loss. An engineer named Nissa worked for free. A dozen others contributed supplies, fuel, and time. They didn't know me. They gained nothing. They helped because it was right. Across the galaxy, billions of beings listened. News feeds carried his words in real time. I made them a promise that day. I told them if they ever needed help, I would answer. They probably thought I was just being emotional, just saying nice words. But I meant it. I've meant it every single day for 15 years. Do-hyun's voice hardened. Today, Velis called for help. He's protecting 15,000 civilians from murderers and raiders. So I'm keeping my promise. And I'm not alone. Every captain in this fleet volunteered to be here. Not because they were ordered, not because they were paid, but because this is who we are. No. Now? No. He looked directly at the camera, knowing Crexus could see him. You asked if we'd really fight over aliens who aren't our species. Here's your answer. We don't measure friendship by species. We measure it by action. These people helped one human. So 43 human captains answered their call. That's not a bluff. That's a promise. The channel fell silent. Then Do-hyun's voice became ice. So yes, Warlord Crexus, we will fight. We'll fight until every single civilian behind us is safe. We'll fight until you're destroyed or you run. Choose now. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, on the Ravager flagship, Throck spoke quietly to his commander. Sir, he means it. Look at their formation. Look at their targeting solutions. They're not posturing. They're ready to engage. Crexus wanted to fight. Every instinct told him to attack, to prove his strength. But he'd survived by knowing when to push and when to retreat. And this was a fight he couldn't win. All ships, he growled. His crew looked relieved. Slowly, the Ravager fleet began to withdraw. But Crexus couldn't resist one last threat. This isn't over, human. You've made an enemy today. Captain Ji-hyun Park's voice cut in, cold and sharp. No, Warlord. You're confused about what just happened. We didn't make an enemy. We revealed one. You threatened our friend. You threatened civilians. And now, every Terran knows your name. Every Terran knows your ships. Every Terran knows your face. Captain Minho Choi added his voice. The next time we see you, Warlord, there won't be warnings. There won't be chances to retreat. Captain Yuna Lee finished. You wanted to know if we'd really fight for aliens? Now you know. Sleep well, Warlord. Because we're always watching. The Ravager fleet continued its retreat, moving faster now. Within minutes, they'd jumped away, disappearing into faster-than-light travel. Silence fell across the battlefield. Then, from Velis's merchant vessel, came a message. It was just 2 words, spoken in a voice thick with emotion. Thank you, Do-hyun smiled. No thanks needed, old friend. We're just keeping our promises. All civilian ships, prepare for escort. We'll guide you to the nearest safe port. Over the next hour, the Terran fleet organized the convoy. Medical ships checked the refugees for injuries. Supply vessels provided food and water. Warships formed a protective escort, and through it all, Do-hyun coordinated with the calm efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Finally, he sent a private message to Velis. 10 minutes later, Velis stood in the hangar bay of the Times Eternal Promise *. He walked slowly, his old body tired from stress and fear. Then he saw Do-hyun waiting for him, and the years seemed to fall away. They embraced like the old friends they were. Velis was crying again. You brought your whole fleet. For me. For us. For you. Do-hyun confirmed. For everyone who helped me that day. I kept their names. Velis. All of them. Nissa, Gorvin, and a dozen others. I've been checking on all of you for years. Quietly. Making sure you were okay. Why? Because you gave me something invaluable. You showed me that kindness exists in the galaxy. That strangers will help each other. I built this entire fleet on that principle. Do-hyun gestured to the ships around them. Every captain here believes in loyalty, in honor, in keeping promises. That's not just Terran. That's not just human. That's universal. You taught me that. Velis shook his head in wonder. We just gave you some parts and repairs. You gave me hope. You gave me faith in others. And today, I wanted the galaxy to see what that means. I wanted them to understand that humanity doesn't forget. That we honor our debts. That if you help even one of us, you've earned the protection of all of us. Later, on the bridge, Captain Ji-hyun Park reviewed the after-action reports. Admiral, we're receiving messages from across the galaxy. Hundreds of species want to know more about what happened here. What are they saying? They're impressed. Some are calling it the greatest show of loyalty they've ever seen. Others are calling it crazy, dedicating so much force to one rescue. But they're all talking about it. Do-hyun nodded. Good. Let them talk. Let them understand who we are. Over the following days and weeks, the story spread. News networks across the galaxy replayed Do-hyun's speech. They showed images of 43 warships protecting one merchant vessel. They interviewed the refugees who'd been saved. Nissa, watching from her engineering consortium, sent a message to Do-hyun. I always wondered if you meant it. Now I know. Thank you for proving that promises matter. Duenti, Station Master Gorvin, in his retirement, saw the news and laughed with joy. But the most profound impact came from unexpected places. Within a month, over 300 different species sent delegations to Earth. Not with trade offers or military alliances, with simple offerings of friendship. We saw what you did for Velis, one ambassador said. We want to be the kind of friends you'd come running for. Another said, you showed us that honor still exists in the galaxy. We want to be part of that. Ambassador Sun-hee Kang found herself overwhelmed with requests for meetings, for cultural exchanges, for mutual defense pacts. Species that had ignored humanity for decades suddenly wanted to be allies. What changed? She asked Do-hyun during one of their conversations. They saw that our loyalty is worth having, Do-hyun explained. They saw that we don't just make promises. We keep them. That's more valuable than any trade agreement or military treaty. 6 months after the rescue, Velis visited Earth for the first time. He stood in Do-hyun's office, looking out at the planet below. This world of yours. It produced someone like you. That says something. It says we remember where we came from, Do-hyun replied. We were alone once, struggling to find our place in the galaxy. People like you helped us. Now we help others. It's that simple. What you did wasn't simple. You risked everything. We risked ships. We risked resources. We didn't risk what matters. Do-hyun put a hand on Velis's shoulder. You know what I learned that day at Merchant's Haven? That the galaxy is full of good people. People who'll help strangers. People who do the right thing. I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that humans are those kind of people too. None. Velis looked at the admiral who'd once been a struggling young captain. You did more than that. You changed how the galaxy sees humanity. You changed how they see loyalty itself. Maybe. But I just kept a promise. Later, Do-hyun stood in the Fleet Command Center, watching his ships return to their regular patrols. 43 captains had answered his call without hesitation. They'd abandoned their posts, risked their careers, and trusted his judgment completely. He sent a message to all of them. You honored a debt I owed. You showed the galaxy who we are. I'm proud to serve with every one of you. The responses came back quickly. From Ji-hyun. We'd do it again tomorrow, Admiral. From Minho. That's what this fleet is for, sir. From Yuna. Just show us who needs help. Do-hyun smiled. This was humanity's promise. Not conquest. Not domination. Just simple loyalty and keeping their word. And the galaxy would never forget.